Hi, good morning, everyone. We hope everyone is safe and healthy during this time period, and we're very grateful that you joined us today on our webinar. My name is Rachel, and I'm the Director of Business Development for TorontoJobs.ca. And I wanted to kind of just introduce my colleagues first before we get into the webinar itself. So I will first start with Mark Galage, who's the President of TorontoJobs.ca with over 20 years in the staffing industry. And we have Aglise Perez, who is our Director of Recruitment, joining us on the webinar today as well. So I don't know if most of you maybe are familiar with our organization. However, we are known for putting on our live events. So we've done some pivoting ourselves over the last month or so to deliver some online content. So that includes the webinars that you're going to see today, and we do have a lot planned for the future, and also some virtual events that we do have in store for everyone. So we're very excited here about things that are coming up in our future. So today, the purpose of the webinar, we're going to talk about adaptation strategies surrounding COVID and recruitment. So those strategies will include going virtual, workplace changes that you may have been experiencing, and employer branding and how you can really stand out during this tough time. So at the end of those strategies, we will do a Q&A period. So at the bottom of your screen, you can see the Q&A box. So if you have any questions throughout the duration of the webinar, please feel free to put them in that box, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. We will also be doing a follow-up email, which will include slides as well as the video for the webinar today. So look for that following the webinar. So in terms of the webinar today, as we all know, Canada, has gone through job loss last month. For the month of April, there was a 13% unemployment rate, which is the highest that obviously we've seen in our lifetime. And that doesn't include the millions of people that have had their hours reduced and the millions of people that have had reduced incomes. The stats are staggering. However, not surprising to a lot of us given the pandemic that is happening. This wasn't predicted and it wasn't prepared for, but what we do know is we need to adapt and we need to pivot. And that's the purpose of our webinar today. For some companies that are on the call, that might mean that your hiring is increased. If you're in the industries, including grocery stores or healthcare, you might be left scrambling to find staff and finding staff in an industry where a lot of people are scared to work. For some of you, it might mean managing layoffs and reducing your staff, and what does that look like for your current staff, and how do you conduct these layoffs? So for whatever the situation you find yourself in as a company, how you adapt and how you handle this will define your relationships with your future hires, with your staff, and also with your customers. So whether it's hiring as usual, whether you're doing hiring freezes, it really is about modifying your recruitment funnel, modifying how you're doing your recruitment strategies, and really adapting to this new situation that has been created by COVID. So we hope today that our adaptation strategies and the things that we've been doing within our organization will give you some ideas of how to creatively move forward in your recruitment processes. So now I'm going to hand it over to Mark and Aglise, who are going to go through those strategies that we've come up with, and I'll be back towards the end with your Q&A. So don't forget to ask us any questions that you have throughout the duration of the presentation. So, and I'm going to hand it over to Mark.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Rachel. Great introduction. And, really the state of the labor market is what it is right now. And, companies are adopting and a lot of the tips that we're going to go through today are really just sharing with you some ideas and where we see the future going as far as we've seen. I was thinking this morning that today or yesterday, I got a signed offer back for a position for a person that got a placement in Ottawa. And it was the first time in my 25 years, as far as I remember, where there was actually no in-person interview. It was all done via Zoom. Even though the company was in Ottawa, they had people in Toronto that in the past they would have flown them to Toronto, potential candidates. And this is the first time in 25 years, which is remarkable. So it shows you the times are changing and we adapt as we go along. So I wanted to share with you just some of my thoughts first off, and then I'll turn it over to Aglise here, just about just some of the process and what we're what we think is going to happen in terms of the interview process. So at least maybe you can just go on to the next slide, please. Thanks. So really, you really need to think about whether you're an employer or whether you're a you're involved with your job developer. I know there's many different types of people on this call right now, or on this video. So you really have to think out the whole process. So as I was thinking about it, mapping, kind of from start to finish, all the steps that happen. So for example, we start with the job description. So in the job description world, in the past, it was you had to type it out and you had to put it all together and so on. Now there's many, many different options for creating job descriptions online. You can just Google create job description, or you can, really take somebody else's job description and modify it to your needs. So that has tweaked. The next thing is we've changed from years ago. Obviously, we went from newspapers to online. So that's another change in the whole process. And then as you go through the interview process, well, we moved from, really over the last few years, we moved from a situation where people wanted to only meet in person for, say, a first interview to, Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Zoom now being acceptable forms of doing an interview. So you really, let's walk through the rest of the process. I'm just going to take a few minutes here to kind of share with you some thoughts here. So we moved from online from newspaper to online for job postings. Interviews have moved from online from in-person to online in many cases. Many platforms will allow you to create the job description, as I mentioned. And then not just that, there's also websites that are available that you put your job description in, and you can find out whether your job description is gender, is sexist, or will entice more men to apply or more women to apply. So is it one I looked at earlier this morning called Gender Decoder, for example. And you can put in your job description, you just copy and paste, and it'll tell you whether there's going to be more or less people that are going to apply who are male or female, or whether there's certain negative words. The next level is automatic screening of resumes. So you post your job, you get resumes, and then you got to screen them. So there's many, many platforms available where you can, and a lot of them are maybe larger, or some of the bigger job boards will have resume screeners. So it will rank the candidates and tell you who's a better match. We talked about video interviews. Not only is it moving to online, of course, but if you Google Vera the robot, Vera the Russian robot, you'll find out an online interviewer that can make phone calls, can answer simple questions to job seekers, can interview 50,000 or more people a day, just a day, 50,000 or more people, and can speak 68 languages, including English, Russian, and Arabic. So that just to give you an idea as to where things are moving. So hiring somebody without actually meeting them will probably become a way of the future. Thinking about people working remotely from home, I mean, nobody knows what's gonna happen in the future. So thinking about people working remotely will change that. And then finally, the onboarding and the training side of it, how are you going to integrate them with your other employees, so like new hires, so that there's a culture built within your organization? How are you going to deal with those people when you're training with them? Like, are you going to do it through YouTube? Are you going to do it through Zoom? Or is it going to be one-on-one? But the days of somebody sitting next to them next to their desk and showing them on a screen or in a boardroom or in a room or whatever may be changing. So it's certainly changing, and so overall, you just need to think of all those steps, like that whole process, and how your organization is going to change to adapt to that. So thanks. I'll turn it over to Elise now.
All right, can everyone hear me? All right, perfect. Well, thank you, Mark. So just going on to our next point, and the next strategy that we do want to talk about is workplace changes. So obviously there's been a lot of changes already with this situation. A lot of people working from home, people that are working in the office are, with a skeleton crew per se. So there's already been a lot of changes, but I think that we can anticipate more changes to come. And of course, as the government reopens the economy, and some people or more people are headed to the office, then we have to really consider what that's going to look like. So first point is really talking about just processes and putting clear how important it is to put clear processes into place. So think of these as the everyday guidelines for your staff. So they come into work, they stay on track, they know what to do. Despite all the distractions going on right now, of course, people are working from home, the news is on all day, they have just everything is new in terms of environment. So despite all those distractions, I think process is really the way to go, making sure that if you haven't jumped on the automation wagon, this is the time to do that, making sure you're streamlining as much as possible. And then of course, looking at your current processes and how they can be tightened. Now is definitely not the time to add too much, but I think really it's just streamlining your application tracking system, your CRM, looking at interviewing scheduling tools, chatbots, things that, tying into Mark's comments about going virtual, tying into that as well and how that can improve your processes day to day. And then of course, the next thing is, it's becoming more of a challenge for managers to assess productivity from a distance. So really what that means is we're gonna have to get used to assessing productivity, even, if people are working remotely, or maybe we can't have as many meetings as we did before, but it's not gonna just come down to micromanaging, right? And micromanaging activity. As a manager, there's three things that I really try to keep in mind right now, especially, and I find that it's working well as long as I keep that in mind every day when I'm managing my team. And those three things are, the first, of course, is communication. So just communicating goals and deadlines clearly. So, which will involve a usual, group meeting, virtual meeting, and then of course, written. So written email, just confirming the details. So there's no miscommunication. And of course, just make it very goal oriented. So that's really the second thing I try to keep in mind, is also just make it, maintain a results oriented culture instead of just delegating tasks to your team. What that does, of course, is it makes everyone focus on what needs to be done rather than just following orders. And of course, the third thing is accountability. So just forming plans to increase your accountability. Let your staff know that they will be reporting to you later on, right off the bat, so there's no surprises. And you'll see the results there. Of course, the third point on the slide here is just communication, going back to that. Right now, it really is a time to start sharpening up those skills. And of course, flexibility. So flexibility is the new norm. It's not the time to start clock watching your employees. Of course, that 9-to-5 job is no longer right now. And, we don't know what it will look like in the upcoming weeks. So right now, people are working from home, they're being disrupted, they're taking breaks to feed their kids, and then they're jumping out back to work. So really just keeping in mind that flexibility does come from both. Of course, people are working late hours to make up for the time they weren't earlier in the day, and you got to give and take in that situation. All right, and one of the things that are upcoming for us would be just cleanliness and space in the office. So right now, everybody has anxiety about sanitation and hygiene, and of course, this is going to continue as we get back to the office. So putting things into place, looking at space in the office, not having everyone close together anymore. That might be a reality. Also, making sure that there's disinfectant wipes in the office, hand sanitizers available for everybody. And of course, just making sure that you are approachable if anyone has concerns about any of those things. All right. And of course, just respecting health matters that do or may come up in the future, especially when people are working from the office, and respecting sick leaves that need to be taken. I think that that is going to be coming up quite more. People will have anxiety or anxiousness if they do get sick, even if it's not COVID. So we do need to think about how we're going to manage that, and maybe put in some policies into place when it comes to someone who isn't feeling quite well. We don't want that hero in the office coughing up a storm, thinking they're doing a great job because they're working even though they're sick. It's those days are gone now. And lastly, of course, is just what are we going to do to prepare for round two? So no one knows what is coming. No one knows, whether this is going to fade and that's it, or it will start up again. So we need to, as companies, as managers, and recruiters, prepare for the what ifs, and just keep in mind that things that we're currently doing, we may have to do all over again. And hopefully the first time we weren't prepared, but the second time we will be. All right, so moving on to our last strategy, and which is, it's going to be talking about branding. So the first thing is, of course, we have the internal employer branding that we need to consider, and then of course how we project that externally. So I'll talk about first about just internal employees. So right now is a time where people want to be reassured. People want constant communication, and what I would say is, we need to make regular announcements to our staff. So if you're not doing that, I urge you to just make sure that you're constantly communicating. I don't think that this is a time where we could over communicate. Sending announcements, so being transparent with your staff on what's going on with the company, not just at a low level but a high level too. I think people have they're worried about their jobs. They're worried that the company is not going to go into the right direction right now, or not going to be able to survive this. So really just communicating what's going on, and also what the strategies are for the next few weeks or so. And then of course, just focusing on the good news as well. So this isn't the time to just focus on the bad, but we want to also share good news. It's the time to celebrate any accomplishments, and all that of course can be done virtually, and just maintaining positivity in your culture. And then of course, don't forget about your laid off staff. Even though they're not in the picture right now, hopefully they will be coming back to you, and we don't want them to steer off and start looking for work. So what I would say is really just maintain communication, keep that relationship, and make sure that you're offering them also the same type of communication that you are your current staff. Okay, so if there's announcements that they could be getting, or again, just letting them in on any positive news that's going on with the company, so they feel reassured. And then of course, it's just the approach that you're going to take. Right now, people don't really want to be spoken to. They want to be spoken with. So really, it's just taking that compassionate approach when you're talking to your internal current employees, but also when you're putting your messages out there in social media, or just branding your company as a whole. If you're doing videos, if you're doing webinars, make sure that you are relatable, and you're also just opening up for conversation. And in that note, with that note, let's talk about the external employees or potential employees for the future. How we want to project your own company, or the image of your company, is really important right now. People are watching. People are going to notice. The companies that prevail are going to be the ones that have a particular image. They're going to also be the ones that people want to work for in the future. People are looking at the companies that are dealing with this very well and not so well. So in that mind is just position yourself to be a top employer. What value will you add to your to potential candidates that want to work for you? And then of course is just keeping, and of course just increasing your social media presence. So be top of mind, be out there. I know Rachel spoke to that a little bit earlier. We've been trying to do that ourselves. It's just putting ourselves out there and making sure that people aren't forgetting about us, even though, business is down for a lot of us. We still, I think more than ever, we need to pivot. And then of course, take the time to update your company image. So update your career page, revitalize your social media presence, and lastly, of course, stay connected. So that's it. Thank you very much. So I'm going to pass it back to Rachel and go from there.
I would just I would just add to your points, Iglesias, is that the workplace is going to change. Sorry, Rachel. The workplace is going to change in the sense of we may have screens be around our desks, and I wouldn't be surprised right now if the Ministry of Labor is working on policies on what businesses have to do to accommodate, and whether it's workplace safety or policies, Ministry of Labor, whatever it is, but I'm sure they're working on something that's going to give us guidelines as to what we all need to do, because it's a new world. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there's so many things to consider, and it can be very overwhelming. I know my kind of forte is the business development and marketing side of things. And obviously, our business has taken a big hit from this. We used to do live events. We used to do interviewing in person. And we've really had to shift. And I know Iglesias went through some points, but just some examples of things that we're doing. Everyone is experienced, or everyone has knowledge in terms of organizations and certain things, whether it's connecting and doing webinars with your past employee, with your laid off employees, kind of communicating with potential people out there, but doing webinars, social media. We've been putting out inspirational quotes. We have the resources to be able to do complimentary, walking people through interviews, or if they've been laid off, doing coaching sessions and things like that. So we've been offering our time that way. Every company has a way that they can reach out and touch people. And now is the time to do that when everyone's kind of in need. So, we've been doing that. We've kind of shifted some of our events. We're going to try some virtual events. It's new for us. It's scary, but, we really want to add value to people while we're all going through this. So just some of the ways that we've been trying to adapt. But I am going to go through just a few questions. So thanks so much for submitting your questions. So I'm going to start with what businesses can do to ensure their temporary laid off staff are going to return to the organization. So again, what employers can do to ensure that their temporary staff are going to be returning to work again. So I don't know who wants to take on that question.
I can start. Maybe Iglesias can add a couple of points. I think the wage subsidy is the real way that the government is trying to make sure that there is that connection with people. So if you bring them back, even if they're not working, they can still get paid through the wage subsidy program, assuming you qualify. There's conditions, obviously, that qualify, but the government will pay up to 75% of somebody's salary, whether it's a temporary, hourly, or permanent. And that keeps that connection going with that person. Now, whether they may decide to apply through the Canada Emergency Response Benefits, CERB, to get the $2,000 a month, that may be as well. But I think the real connection the real way is to stay connected with that person regularly, once a week, once every couple of weeks. How are things going? Here are our plans. Here's the update as to what's happening, and here's what we're thinking about doing. Iglesias, do you want to add anything to that too?
Yeah, no, I think that those are probably the main points for sure. Actually, Rachel and I were talking the other day about a letter that the CEO from Airbnb wrote to his employees, and particularly those who have been laid off. And why we were talking about this letter is because, of course, you can find it on the internet. So if you haven't seen it, you can Google it. And but what it is, it's a very transparent, it's a very sincere letter to the employees, and it really touches upon just the what's to come, the reasons first. I would say first the reasons that they were laid off in the first place. So it's just that transparency to say, hey, this is not what we wanted, but as a company, this is what we feel we have to do. And people do understand that. And then, of course, more than that, they're talking about their rights. You have rights to this. These are the packages we're going to provide to you. And then also what the future may look like and what they hope the future looks like. So I think it's just, by saying that, it's really just comes down to how you communicate, how you treat those employees, and give them the reasons to come back, right? Make them miss you at the end of the day.
That's perfect. So I'm just going to, kind of go through quickly because we do have some questions and I want to be able to get through them before our 10:30 stop. So what should recruiters be doing if their searches are down?
Lisa, you want to take this one? I wonder if it's recruiters from recruiting firms or just recruiters in
Yeah,
general.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
It wasn't really specific. I guess maybe if I can kind of speak to it a little bit, if your searches are down and you're finding that, your regular role used to be just searching or just looking for candidates, and now you're kind of finding there's not a lot of openings or there's not a lot of jobs that you're working on, perhaps you can step out and kind of help your company with branding. I mean, maybe that's getting on video and talking about interview tips or talking about ways that you do recruiting and really putting yourself out there and helping your employer brand would be a great way to maybe fill the gap. It's doing a little bit of pivoting. No one's job looks like it did 1 or 2 months ago. I mean, I've had to become a technical support person and it's very new for me. So you really have to embrace it and find new ways to do the job that you were doing. Maybe in turn it'll become more effective and it might be something that sticks. So my response to that would be if you're not doing as many searches or you're not doing as many interviews, maybe put yourself out there and really help your company brand, whether that's through your personal social network, whether it's, doing videos that maybe your company can share on their networks or their platforms.
Maybe a couple other things too. Yeah. Community work, helping people with their resumes, job interviewing tips, any of that kind of stuff to help the community. Also to reach out to other departments within your organization as well to find out what they have, what their needs are, and stay in touch with senior management too to understand what their plans are for the future. I know it's hard to budget more than a day or a week or a month ahead of time these days, but really industry people will kind of have a feel as to where the market's going and where that recruiter can help out. I did do a topic, and just a quick plug, I do Facebook live for recruiters at 12:30 every day on our Toronto Recruiters Conference page. And I did talk about this topic. If your requisitions are down, what do you do? Whether you're a recruiter in a company or an agency. So if you want to check out that video, it's on our Facebook Toronto Recruiters Conference page. You can see the video I believe it was last week, but I do it every day at 12:30.
Just another note of that too, as an organization, you can be, we've adapted and every day, like Mark said, we at the beginning of the week, we sit down, we create a schedule of hot topics or things that we could be communicating to, whether it's our clients or our candidates. And we go out on Facebook Live. Mark started to bring in some guests and we put together content. It's a quick, 10-minute thing that we do that we give back to the community. We're giving information. It's live. People can watch it. We record the videos and it's content too for our future. We post them to our YouTube channel. So just an innovative way that we've it helps us build our database and it helps us build our video content, but it also helps to give back to the community. So,
and I just want to add to that. Sorry, I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to add to that as well. Something else that I really do recommend right now and that I find has worked well for us is going after referrals. And when I say referrals, I mean client referrals. So even though your clients, you should be still continuing to keep relationships with your clients, even though they don't have business with you, right? You're still going to maintain that relationship. And then beyond that, use that relationship to help you find more clients. So, ask for those referrals. And of course, the better relationship, the better job you have done for these people in the past, the more likely they are to give you client referrals. So those your clients have clients, and it's worked really well for us. So that's another tip that I would want to say.
And I'll put it out there to anybody who wants to be a guest on my segment. Reach out to me as well on my Facebook Live. So.
Smart.
Amazing. So just if we don't get to your questions, we will answer. We do get a summary of them, so we can answer them once the webinar is finished. We can reach out to you via email. So if we don't get to your question, I apologize, but we will at some point over the next couple days. So this might be the last question because we do have some concluding thoughts. So innovative ways of recruiting talent during tough times. So I think this person's looking for some suggestions of things that they can be doing that are innovative. I know we've covered a few. I don't know if we have any additional points that we can share.
I think for me, social media, like ramping up your social media, having links to YouTube videos on your job postings, have a link to your social media on job postings, getting referrals, talking to previous candidates that have applied, that you've interviewed, updating your database. I think those are all, good ways of at least communicating and trying to get the word out to a broader audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And just following up on leads too, I think, don't forget that a lot of people have been laid off, of course, and they're continuing to be laid off, or their hours are being reduced. So there is a sense of, there's a need for us right now. And if it's not right now where we can provide, that person a job or a job opportunity, it'll be hopefully in the upcoming weeks. So right now, just following up on leads. If you hear about a layoff, then go after those employees and then ask them for referrals for more colleagues and so on.
Yeah, that's great. So we are at 10:30. I don't want to take up, too much more of people's time. But I do want to say, like, we're here as a support, whether it be for clients, whether it be for candidates. We've, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've really tried to pivot what we're doing. We've really tried to be a resource and do the best we can. There's been a lot of obviously questions and things coming in at us about, government support and all of these different things. So we've been adapting and doing some webinars on the candidate side as well. And like Mark said, if you want to join him on his Facebook Live, or if you think that you have some content that you want to share with candidates, we're more than open to hearing that. So I personally just wanted to say thanks to everyone for coming today, and I hope that you stay safe and healthy, and I am optimistic that things are going to turn around. And I'm going to pass it over to Mark because he just has some concluding points, and I think he's going to just talk a little bit about what we do as a company. But yeah, thanks so much for attending today.
Yeah, so thanks very much. Again, my name is Mark Belaish. I'm president of TorontoJobs.ca, and Elise Perez, our director of our recruiting team, and Rachel Mitchell, who's involved with a number of events and marketing. If you've worked with her before, you'll know that she's involved with a number of different job fairs that we do and events. We were planning on doing 12 events this year. We're down to whatever we can through the fall in terms of live, provided we can. But in the meantime, we are having a couple of events coming up as well, virtual. We've been looking at virtual platforms. So I'll just share with you, if you are a business owner, you have a business, or you're thinking about starting up a business, or somebody who does, we're doing our Toronto Entrepreneurs first ever virtual conference and trade show. It happens next Thursday, May 21st. It's presented by TorontoJobs.ca. It's from 1 o'clock to 4:30, and you can visit TorontoEntrepreneurs.ca for that. But if you are recruiting, we have our job board, we have our recruitment team. We do also provide outplacement services too. So if you're looking to downsize, we can help you with any layoffs and terminations and coaching for employees that you are downsizing as well. And feel free to reach out to us by phone. You'll see the number on the screen, and by email. Feel free to connect with myself or Rachel or Elise on LinkedIn as well. And I just thanks for watching. And like I said, if there's anything I can help you out with, we have also just one other thing I wanted to mention, that is that we've updated our YouTube channel for TorontoJobs.ca. There's a number of videos on there that you can check out. All you got to do is just go to youtube.com, search TorontoJobs.ca, check out our channel, and you'll see the videos that we have on there. So, and then we also have one for Toronto Recruiters Conference as well. So you can check out all kinds of videos on different topics, and we've been doing them for about a month and a half now. So you can see if there's any topics that might be of interest. They're usually pretty short, less than 10 minutes each. And thanks again for watching.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Elise and Rachel.